What's going on, everyone? The market had a crazy day today as Nvidia broke through $1,060 a share before pulling back a little bit. And while Nvidia had a great day, the rest of the market certainly did not, as 89% of stocks in the S&P 500 closed in the red today. It was just a bloodbath when you look at the heat map. There was basically Nvidia and a handful of other stocks that just held the market slightly higher, but we are set for a very exciting day tomorrow. Of course, not only do we have all the craziness going on with Nvidia and the rest of the market, but we also are heading into a holiday weekend where the market will be closed on Monday for Memorial Day. So let's make tomorrow count, and I'm pretty excited, Tom, so let's jump right into it.
Yeah, Monday will be closed for Memorial Day, so tomorrow will be a pretty big day before that 3-day weekend starts. And today, there was no shortness of excitement, Mike. From pretty much market open all the way till close, there was a lot of insane movement out there. And I will say this, Nvidia continued to do amazing, popped above $1,000 per share for the first time ever, and that's awesome. Whenever you start to look at Nvidia and you look at all the good earnings that they had yesterday, I'm really glad that they moved up. But what the hell happened to the overall market, Mike? Like, you go to that heat map, it's like, wow. I mean, I know people have been saying Nvidia has been propping the market up on its back, and today I definitely saw that. But whenever we switch back over to the SPY, it actually closed down in the red. So that was a pretty big negative to see, as a lot of the stocks out there in the market started pulling back. Even a lot of the big tech stocks like Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and others were all down pretty deep in the red for their own right. So at the end of the day, Mike, Nvidia did amazing, but it just wasn't enough, to really spur, I guess, the bullishness in the overall market. So everybody has kind of scratching their heads for tomorrow, right? Like, what is going on here? Like Mike, like what happened today? Like, why are so many stocks red?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's not just a singular piece of news to explain this type of price action, but in its simplest form, a lot of it just comes down to profit taking and de-risking. Let's not forget that the market is still very close to its all-time high, and, I guess you could say the underlying structure of the market right now is nowhere near as euphoric as it was, let's say, a couple, months ago. Yes, we had Nvidia blast higher on earnings, but again, Nvidia is kind of the exception to the market as a whole. So I think it's just a blend of profit taking, and then of course, once you have a stock, or in this case, a group of stocks, start to fall lower, you have short sellers come in, and you just have that snowball effect of pressure to the downside. But what I think is very interesting heading into tomorrow is that clearly most of the flows are bearish. When you have 89% of stocks in the S&P 500 in the red, that tells you something. That is a very big discrepancy there. So heading into tomorrow, you can't help but at least be a little bit skeptical. In the past, when we've seen this large of a percentage of stocks in the red, it made a lot of sense to look at, you could say, bearish plays like SQQQ and UVXY, where in the event the market does continue lower, at least those types of stocks and ETFs do give you some exposure to, I guess you could say, have some good trades. Like, for example, SQQQ today popped up by around, you could say, 1.5%, which definitely doesn't sound like a lot, but when you look at that on an intraday basis, it definitely gets a lot better. From open, SQQQ is up almost 6% on the day, and if we were to see a true snowball effect of selling pressure come in, it would not be all that crazy to see SQQQ up, anywhere from 10 to 15% or even more. But again, it just depends on how the market itself is moving and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and Mike, I know we actually just talked about the VIX the other day, and we saw that chart where whenever it actually gets this low, it doesn't really stay there for too long. And I'll say this, it got really close to that lower area of that range, and we're starting to see a little bit of volatility come in here. Now, I'm not saying that the VIX necessarily has to keep exploding, all the way back up to 17 or 20 here, but in the short term, we might see a lot more chop with the VIX and with the market. So definitely be ready for that, Mike. A little bit of the dynamics are changing slightly, but it did hit a new all-time high this morning. The SPY in pre-market was up quite a bit, hitting around 534 before actually selling off quite a bit. I will say, though, it almost seems like a bit of a fake out. We ended up falling back below the resistance this week around 531.50, which was crucial. There's been like 4 or 5 really amazing touches there. And even today, as the market fell under, it used that as another key resistance before really having that massive sell-off. So I don't know, Mike, it's definitely not looking good for tomorrow based off the news today, but you never know with the stock market at all-time highs. It has definitely been resilient lately. So I'm going to keep my eyes on the Mag 7 stocks like Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and others. And of course, when we look at the heat map today, it was pretty red in all sectors, like oil stocks, financial stocks / banks, tech stocks, of course, even the healthcare industry, Mike. Like, it was just red across the board. So you definitely have to, keep an open mind, I think, heading into the final day of the week here.
No doubt about that. And heading into tomorrow, there's no need to make it more complicated than it needs to be. If we continue to see more bearish price action, then don't be afraid to trade stocks in a bearish way and to hit on some put options. Whereas if we see the market stabilize and show a lot of strength and start to bounce higher, there's no need to try and force bearish setups that just aren't there. So no matter what, as always, being adaptable is the name of the game, and of course operating in trading in a way that prioritizes risk management over anything else. But while we're on the topic of risk management, Tom, let's talk about a company that does a horrible job at that, and that's Boeing. So Boeing has been taking a beating over the past year or so, and they had even more bad news come out today, and the stock fell by 7.5%. I know a bunch of people look at this ticker, and what's the situation today? The chart looks nasty.
Yeah, it's just a never-ending flow of bad news into Boeing, right? And once again, we see more bad news here. So apparently, the airplane deliveries are not going to be recovering as quick as people thought, and that's a pretty bad sign whenever you start looking at Boeing. They really want to see those deliveries start to improve, and they're saying that those will not improve, in the second quarter from the first. So that's definitely a very bad sign there. And then guess what? Also, they're going to have negative free cash flow in 2024. So Mike, that's 2 pretty bad statements there by the CFO of Boeing, Brian West. So Boeing just keeps having this bad, steady stream of bad news, and I hate to see another bad article for them. They were actually starting to recover back up a little bit on the daily chart, and with today's movement, it just wiped out like the past 3 weeks of that recovery. So I'm definitely going to be watching Boeing. It's back down around that 170 to 171 support, but once again, another piece of bad news for this poor company.
Yeah, Boeing's recent price action is like the perfect example of a stock taking the stairs up and the elevator down. Like you said, like this one day of bad price action wiped out like weeks worth of gains. But yeah, keep a close eye on Boeing. Even though the stock has had a bunch of bad news over the past year, some of the options on Boeing just go absolutely crazy. For example, some of the put options today are up anywhere from 1,000% to like almost 4,000%. So it definitely gets pretty crazy. But shifting over into some earnings and events for tomorrow, obviously Nvidia was definitely the star of the show for the week, Tom. But what else is on the schedule?
Yeah, so for tomorrow, we do have BAH and MLAB tomorrow morning. Nothing too crazy there. Whenever we do go over to the economic calendar, though, there is durable goods orders in the morning, and Waller will also be speaking in the morning as well. And then we will get the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Finals for May, so that will be interesting at 10 a.m. But other than that, there's not too much for tomorrow. We can kind of focus on that overall price action, I think. And one thing that I saw today, Mike, is early on in the morning, the initial jobless claims came in a little bit under expectations, and I actually noticed that the FedWatch tool started to shift a little bit. We saw the FedWatch tool, like the probability for cuts, actually shift out to November from September, which is interesting, but the percentages are pretty close for September. But I figured we'd mention that considering that there's not too much more economic data for the week.
Yeah, I guess the key takeaway from that is that the soonest rate cut is now expected for November 7th of 2024, which is definitely much different than the Fed's original expectations when we started the year. But as we all know, these probabilities are constantly changing, but it doesn't really seem like we're getting a rate cut anytime soon. And it's not even that necessary given the market is at all-time highs. It would be more risky for the Fed to cut rates too early and then have inflation be become more of a problem. But either way, good stuff there, Tom. And let's jump right into some setups and predictions for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching pretty closely right now is Coinbase, and it is to the downside. So looking at Coin, it had a pretty rough day today, and it was down by around 5.5%. As always with a cryptocurrency play like Coinbase, many people will look at Bitcoin and just cryptos as a whole to get a gauge of, I guess you could say, the sentiment associated with this type of stock. And just given the big wave of selling pressure we've seen, not only just like in the very short term with Bitcoin, but also in the market as a whole today, that definitely presents a pretty big risk for Coinbase, in my opinion, for the short term only. I do like Coinbase for the long term, but for the short term, I am definitely a little bit skeptical of it. I think there's a pretty good chance we see this retest that $200 support level over like the next couple days. And for as long as there is consistently bearish price action with it, I will be watching this setup very closely. If Coinbase were to get back above that like $223 level, or maybe even a little bit less than that, then I would not be as eager to play this one in a bearish way. But again, for as long as it keeps this bearish price action going, I think there's a pretty good opportunity with it.
Yeah, if Coinbase holds tomorrow right under that like 222, 223 resistance, that would be like a perfect setup to the downside, and then we could maybe see a test of like 210 to 200 here over the next few days. That would be pretty awesome. So I'll keep my eyes on Coinbase to the downside, Mike. I definitely agree with you here. With my first play, I'm looking at Oxy to the downside. The oil stocks had a pretty bad move today, and Oxy's right around support at $62. Tomorrow, if we see a continued hold under 62 and like a breakdown below like 61.60, then I will start to look at opportunities on Oxy to the downside with puts. Obviously, make the options make sense with certain strikes and etc. I will go to next week's chain, Mike. I don't think that playing the, daily expiration will be too good there, but I will go to next week's, but I will look at it at Oxy to the downside. There's been a lot of bad news for the oil stocks. Like we had the news with Biden trying to lower gas prices and stuff. And of course, the Middle East conflicts are kind of cooling off right now. So I am watching these oil stocks to the downside as these supports start to break.
All right, sounds great. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is JP Morgan, and again, it is to the downside. So I've been hitting on this stock a decent amount over the past couple of days, and it has been continuing to move lower, just in a very slow way. Either way, we are getting pretty close to this like $195 support area, and especially if we could break below that, I think it would make a great short-term bearish play. That $195 support is big. And there's even a little bit of support right around 196 as well. But either way, I'm watching JP Morgan to the downside.
Yeah, that's a huge support there, Mike, and I have been watching it down. That $200 resistance that you mentioned yesterday ended up being a huge level, and today it continued to reject back down. So I'll keep watching this one over the next few days. It's been looking great. With my next play, I'm looking at Microsoft to the downside. I'm really watching this big 425 support coming up, and if we go to Bookmap, you can see how big that support is. So if I see a breakdown under that tomorrow, then I will go ahead and look at Microsoft down. Now, I will say this: if the overall market starts popping up tomorrow and we get like a great recovery, obviously the Microsoft puts are going out the window, right? Like we really need to see a good breakdown and continuation at kind of like with what we saw today. The heat map was so red. We saw so many stocks down. We need to see that into tomorrow. There was a lot of bearishness today. So tomorrow there could be, a good continuation, or it could end up getting a little flat. So hopefully we do see that good breakdown though, but 425 will be huge. You guys can see that big level stacked up here on the book map, which is pretty big. There's not a ton of shares, but like 22,000 there. Pretty big for a stock like Microsoft.
All right, sounds great. Well, I think we are all in the clear for today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have SQQQ to the upside.
Oh man, SQQQ is on fire here. It's sitting right around $10 a share. If it ends up breaking above that super key level, then go ahead and look at calls or just potential movement up. You might not even have to play calls with this one. Sometimes you can get some pretty good moves with just the shares, but nonetheless, I'm really watching $10.
All right, with the next one, we have Netflix to the downside.
NFLX, yeah, another bad move by them, Mike. Man, Netflix has been pretty bearish here in the short term. If they end up falling down under 628, then I will continue to look at them down.
And with the last one, we have Old Faithful TLT for both directions.
Whoa, TLT coming back. It's been a couple weeks here. If they break down under $90.80, then go ahead and look at opportunities to the downside. But if we do see a breakout above like 91.25 to 91.30, then I will be looking at a possible recovery.
Sounds good. So we have the upside level for TLT for a potential play up. We have the downside level for a potential play down. And then the same goes with Netflix and SQQQ. Either way, these three stocks are on watch tomorrow for potential day trades if and only if they rip through the levels Tom listed. The stronger and more consistent the price action is, the better the setups become. In the worst case scenario, if the stocks do not break through these levels, do not feel the need to force these setups. It's better to take fewer, higher quality trades rather than many, I guess you could say, low quality or just mediocre trades. So keep that in mind. And besides that, Tom, it is now about that time for today's $2.76 million big money trade of the day. And we are looking at ticker symbol ITB. ITB is a home construction ETF. So basically, it's a bunch of home building stocks all under one ticker symbol. And the big money is betting against this one in a pretty strong way. They bought the 100 strike put options that expire on July 19th of 2024. Around $2.76 million worth of them to be exact, which is quite a bit. These put options are slightly out of the money. They have about 2 months worth of time to them. This stock has been downtrending for almost 2 months now, and it continued lower today even as well. So looking at it, I think the risk reward is pretty good, and in the event we do see a continued sell-off in the market as a whole, this play can act as a decent hedge. So very interesting setup.
Yeah, that resistance overhead around 112 has held up immensely well here for ITB, and I will continue to look at this one to the downside. There is a big support coming up, I'm noticing on the daily, right around 102 to 103. I'll definitely be watching that over the next couple days, but with the way it's moving, I wouldn't be surprised if it started to break down a little bit more there and maybe test 100 and get back down towards like that 96, 97 range that, it was at before. In the past, this stock had a pretty big range between like 97 and 103, so I will be watching for a lot of chop down between here, but I do like this one for puts, Mike. It expires in just a couple months, which is pretty good, and it's 2.7 million. It's a fairly big money play here.
No doubt about that. And when you have almost $3 million put into a put option like this one, it's definitely eye-catching to say the least. But while we're on the topic of some put options, we definitely have to talk about this AMD put option action today around open. So our hybrid bot called out some AMD put options very close to open today for around $325 each. And by the end of the day, these put options were trading for $1,170 each. So this was definitely a grand slam. Feel free to join us in the Stocked Up trading floor to get full access to hybrid bot, surge bot, SM bot, all of our bots that we've custom coded, as well as access to Tom, myself, the big money plays before they are posted in these videos, as well as many other things like our live events and other helpful channels. Basically, if you're into short-term trading, it is the place to be, and it'll be that first link in the description and the comments down below. But Tom, while we're in the Discord, we might as well give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, G Cricket, who had a great scalp with SPY today, and they've just been a great member overall as well. So huge shout out to Cricket, and keep up all the great work there. But we have one more day left for the week, Tom. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, just don't forget, it's going to be a long weekend, guys. So tomorrow is the final day before the 3-day weekend. So definitely make it count tomorrow. And based off the price action today, it's probably going to be a pretty crazy morning. So definitely be ready tomorrow around market open. I think we're going to see quite a bit of volatility. I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on UVXY, SQQQ, and the put opportunities. But of course, in the back of my mind, I'm still going to be adaptable. You know, if we start gapping back up and stuff, you know, you can't really go against this market right now. So I'll definitely be, you know, very adaptable tomorrow, Mike. That's going to be the name of the game. But I do have a slight bias, of course, with all that bearishness that we did see. And whenever we go to like a daily chart, some of these red candles were pretty significant. Even the SPYs, like that was a pretty significant candle today.
No doubt about that. But like you said, we have one more day left, so let's definitely make it count. If you guys are new to the channel, consider demolishing that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. And if you want in on the stocked up trading floor, it'll be that first link in the description and the comments down below. But besides that, let's end this week on a green note, and thank you for watching.